SKOL Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, grab the seatbelt, because this one's about to feel like a roller coaster hitting a broken track. A major piece of the offense could end up as a cap cut, and there's already a mock draft snapping a freaky athletic replacement into place. After that, off-field trouble is already turning into trade whispers. Then we've got a forecast for a rocket boost to the run game that could make life easier for our quarterback. And to close it out, there's a defensive curveball and a gut punch twist involving a former Viking chasing a Super Bowl that'll sting like biting down on foil. Before we dive into the weeds, do me a solid, hit that follow button, and let your opinion fly down in the comments. This is Barstool to the camera arguing, like we're all packed in the same row yelling over each other. Here's where the offense starts feeling like a Jenga tower with someone flicking the base. Nothing's official, but it's the kind of talk that makes you freeze mid-sip and stare at the screen. The cap is tight, and when that financial vice grips a roster, somebody important usually gets bruised. And then the name finally drops like a hammer, TJ Hawkinson. Some analysts think he could be the one who gets tossed overboard as a cap casualty. That's the kind of move that feels like cutting the power just to lower the electric bill. I hate it. A legit tight end is like a chess piece that changes the whole board for a defense. When Hawkinson is right, he's that middle-of-the-field escape hatch on third down, the pressure release when everything's collapsing. Still, I get the ice-cold calculator side of it. If the math doesn't behave, teams start hunting for an exit door. And that's when purple and gold fans start squinting like they just saw smoke under the hood. Dane Brugler from The Athletic put out a mock draft on January 15th saying Kwesi Adofo-Mensah could aim at the top tight end in the class. He pointed straight to Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. Big athlete, more of a build-it project. But in the right hands, he could grow into a nightmare like a seed turning into a wrecking ball. Brugler highlighted Sadiq's ball adjustment ability and his willingness to block. To me, that's already a green light for the way Kevin O'Connell likes to shuffle formations like a card dealer with a grin. Now let's talk plain, no soap opera music. If they actually move on from Hawkinson, you're handing that workload to a rookie or somebody way cheaper. That rewires the playbook. It changes how the quarterback works the middle. It changes pass protection. A tight end who can truly block is like adding a spare shield to both the run and the pass. And if Sadiq is being viewed as top-tier talent like some teams are saying, that's not a casual pick. It's a real stake in the ground. I can feel two voices in my head fighting like bumper cars. One says, slash the bill, get younger, keep rolling. The other says you don't just swap out chemistry and dependability, especially with a young quarterback trying to plant his flag. And you know the crowd reaction. Half the stadium will chant for the full reset. The other half will act like letting go of a reliable target is pure insanity. And people miss this part all the time. Tight end isn't just catches on a stat sheet, it's gravity. It's the guy who can patch over cracks. Lose that, and the offense can start reading like an open book. Only here do you get this fan-level pulse check on the Vikings. On paper it looks clean, but on Sundays it turns messy fast. So I'm throwing it to you. If the cap people really start steering this way, are you betting on a rookie like Sadiq? Or do you keep Hawkinson one more year and fix the cap somewhere else? Let it rip in the comments. And don't blink, because the next one involves Jordan Addison and an off-field situation that could pop like a firecracker. It's like watching a guy dribble past defenders on Sunday and then trip alarms on Monday, because when someone keeps poking the bear off the field, patience gets thin in a hurry. And that always turns into chatter in the locker room, in the front office, and in every purple and gold group chat. Right now, that spotlight is locked on Jordan Addison. On the field, the guy has delivered. Nearly 2,400 yards and 22 touchdowns in 46 games across 3 seasons. But the issue isn't the routes. It's the stuff that happens when the helmet comes off. On January 12th, he was arrested in Tampa for trespassing, misdemeanor. Reports say he was told to leave a restricted area at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino and refused. The Vikings said they were collecting more information. Fine. But everybody connected the dots immediately, because it's not the first time. Remember July of 2023? He got cited for reckless driving, 140 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone in Minnesota. Then July of 2024 brought the bigger mess near Los Angeles. He was found asleep behind the wheel on a freeway near Los Angeles International Airport. That came with a driving under the influence charge. And in 2025, the NFL suspended Addison for 3 games to start the season because of that case. His numbers slid. He played 14 games and ended with 42 catches, 610 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's when the rumor engine really started revving, a so-called realistic trade proposal. Cole Smith from Vikings Wire floated the idea of sending Addison to the Baltimore Ravens for a third-round pick in the 2026 draft, 80th overall. The reasoning is simple, he's still on a rookie deal, so he's affordable. But with that track record, the franchise could get tired of constantly holding its breath. For Baltimore, it's a measured gamble. Pair Addison with Zay Flowers, and suddenly Lamar Jackson has another weapon like adding nitro to the engine. Let me be straight, I understand why you'd listen if calls come in, but I also know what it costs to lose young talent who can separate deep. That's not something you pull off the shelf every season. Still, in Minnesota, repeated off-field problems wear out goodwill quick. And when it becomes the same distraction on loop, the team starts thinking bigger, future, locker room, culture. At that stage, no highlight clip is loud enough to drown it out. And if that phone starts buzzing, I'd bet it won't be only Baltimore dialing. Big teams are always fishing for wideouts. The Chiefs, the Bills, the 49ers, everybody wants another weapon. Then it stops being trade or no trade and turns into for what price and when do you pull the trigger? Stick with me because the next one is about how Minnesota can take some of the load off our quarterback. A big name keeps showing up in the run game conversation. Let me tell you what makes my eye twitch. When the whole offense feels like it's leaning on the quarterback like a crutch, begging for magic every snap. Then you look down at the run game, and it's got no spark, no punch. That's not just fans yelling into the void. The numbers scream it too. Here's the hard line. The Vikings ended up in the bottom 10 in rushing yards with 1,841 total, and major voices cited that using ESPN data. And when you can't run the ball, defenses don't have to respect it. They play lighter, and your quarterback lives in a pressure cooker. Now there's a name that keeps swirling around, but I'm not tossing it at you like a dart just yet. The concept is to add a running back who snaps tackles like twigs and steals yards where there should be nothing but disappointment. J.P. Acosta from CBS Sports said on January 14th on CBS Sports HQ that Minnesota could go after exactly that kind of player. All right, now we say it. Kenneth Walker III. He's coming off a season with 221 carries, 1,027 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 17 games. And there's extra fuel to this. Acosta noted that Vikings running backs struggled in broken tackles and missed tackle rate, while Walker ranked 4th in that metric. In plain fan language, he's the dude who gets hit and still drags the play forward like he's hauling a sled uphill. That's how you win late in the year when it's freezing and the turf feels like wet cement. And believe me, I've seen enough Minnesota cold to know that matters. Now people ask, why would he leave Seattle? Because he split work with Zach Charbonnet a lot. Sometimes a guy wants to be the motor, not part of the rotation. In Minnesota, if cap cuts really start happening, the lane could open. Aaron Jones Sr. has been floated as a possible money-related departure. And if you look at the current competition for carries, Jordan Mason is the main name. You can easily picture Walker staring at that like it's a door cracked open. Then we hit the part tied right to the future, J.J. McCarthy. Former player Chad Johnson said on the Nightcap show on January 9th that McCarthy basically has one more season to prove he's the guy. That's a heavy brick to drop, I know, but that's the NFL. If you don't show it fast, teams panic and pivot. Ben Gosling from the Star Tribune also said on K-Fan on January 6th that it doesn't look like Minnesota will pay starter-level quarterback money to bring in someone to truly compete head-to-head with McCarthy. If someone expensive shows up, it's to play, and then everything changes. So yeah, backing the kid for real right now makes sense. A back who can rip off big plays, pulls defenders toward the line, and gives the offense balance instead of living on prayers. And I'm not going to pretend I'm made of stone. When I hear this projection, I'm like, finally, somebody's talking about the foundation instead of the shiny paint. Football still gets decided in the trenches and with the run game. So where are you at on this? Would you spend free agency money on a player like Walker to give McCarthy breathing room and hand this offense an identity? Sound off in the comments. Only here do you get this bleacher-level perspective because it's not just about a flashy name, it's about fit and timing. And buckle up because the next one rocks the defense. There are interviews, backroom whispers, and a weird feeling hanging over everything. You can't stare at this defense and act like it's background noise. It's the steel beams holding the house up. When a coordinator is in rhythm, the whole team moves like it's connected by wires. And when that guy starts taking calls elsewhere, it's like hearing footsteps in a dark hallway. The name in the middle of all this is Brian Flores. On Wednesday, January 14th, word dropped that he accepted 2 more interview requests. One to become head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and another for a defensive coordinator role with the Washington Commanders. And he'd already talked with the Baltimore Ravens about their head coaching opening. The strange part is how this bumps into what Kevin O'Connell has been saying. KOC kept saying he expected Flores back if he didn't land a head coaching job. But once Flores is even taking a defensive coordinator interview outside Minnesota, it sets off that, wait, what? Alarm like a car horn in a quiet parking lot. Kevin Seifert from ESPN laid it out clean. There's really only one way to read it. Flores wants to see if something better is out there. And I get why. He's got leverage. His defense attacks, it scrambles quarterbacks' brains, and we watched it work in plenty of games. But it's also obvious he wants control and he wants to feel valued. And that's not just vibe talk. Last offseason, he reportedly turned down a contract extension. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk wrote on December 27th that the Vikings were working toward an extension, and Flores decided to wait. If that was him betting on himself, it's cashing right now. But let's talk about what could be nudging him to peak elsewhere. The secondary struggled in 2025. There wasn't enough proven talent. And when the defense is constantly doing tightrope work, the coordinator catches heat too. Add in that the team is heading into the offseason with a salary cap hole close to $44 million. That shrinks reinforcements and could squeeze what they can pay to keep Flores. Then there's the offensive angle. They committed to J.J. McCarthy as the starter without a real backup plan. They've already suggested they'll address that in 2026. But if you're a defensive coordinator, you look across the ball and think about your ceiling. If the offense is inconsistent, the defense spends the whole game living on the edge of a cliff. Honestly, I'm not mad at Flores for listening. I'm nervous about whoever comes next. Because minds like that aren't sitting on a shelf waiting for you. And we all know the nightmare. One wrong hire and a whole season evaporates like breath in winter air. So if he walks, is it only money? Or is there something deeper? Locker room, direction, vision? That question keeps bouncing around like an echo in an empty stadium. And stay with me, because the next story is about a former Viking who suddenly popped up on a team still chasing the Super Bowl, and it tells you a lot about how this league really operates. The NFL does this thing where it feels like a movie twist, but it's just reality moving fast. A guy you weren't even thinking about suddenly lands on a roster still alive in the biggest race. And for anyone who tracks Vikings football like it's a heartbeat, it messes with your head. The name is Trent Sherfield Jr., but don't go sprinting to conclusions. He didn't show up as a headliner, he joined the New England Patriots practice squad. That's the kind of signing that says, we need bodies right now, like grabbing an umbrella when the sky turns ugly. And depending on how the weekend shakes out, he could get activated and end up on the field in the middle of playoff chaos. Now look at the full circle weirdness. Sherfield has bounced all over. This is team number 8. He's played for the Cardinals, 49ers, Dolphins, Bills, then Minnesota in 2024. Then the Broncos, and now the Patriots. That's a survival track, not a red carpet career. I see it and think he probably lives with a suitcase half-zipped by the door. If you remember him in Minnesota, the stats don't scream at you. 8 catches, 83 yards, and 1 touchdown in 2024. But his real worth wasn't in those numbers. His value was in the grimy work. Special teams, the stuff that never gets a montage but flips field position and protects a lead like a lock on a door. Under Kevin O'Connell, he became a steady piece, playing 221 special team snaps. On offense, he had that very specific job as a 5th wide receiver. Step in when needed, don't gripe, block, cover kicks, stay useful. And for a roster trying to win right now, that's gold. Dustin Baker from Vikings territory stressed that, pointing out how Sherfield went from unemployed to a team still alive in the Lombardi chase with one signature. That's the NFL in one breath. Today you're out. Tomorrow you're standing on a playoff sideline waiting to fly down on punt coverage like a bullet. There's another layer that hits purple and gold fans in the ribs. New England is turning into a crossroads for former Vikings. Baker mentioned Garrett Bradbury, Stephon Diggs, and Vidarian Lowe being there too. It's not magic, but it's that eerie feeling of seeing pieces of your team scattered like confetti after the parade's already gone. Honestly, I'm glad a guy like this found a lane. He represents the grind side of the sport. But it also makes me think about what Minnesota valued and what it decided to let walk. Special teams are invisible until the moment they aren't, and then it's like realizing your brakes are gone halfway down a hill. And that's where this gets bigger. When you connect it to everything else we hit today, you can feel the Vikings sitting at a crossroads. And I'm telling you, the way I read it all, it's not exactly soothing. I'll say it like I'm talking to myself during a Sunday game with the remote in my hand. The Vikings are standing on a fork in the road. If cap stress turns TJ Hawkinson into a real question mark, the whole offense shifts. If Jordan Addison keeps handing the headlines fresh off-field fuel, the front office may hit its limit and the locker room feels that ripple. The Kenneth Walker III idea is tempting because it lets J.J. McCarthy breathe and gives the team a real identity instead of living on desperation. But then you look at the defense and see Brian Flores taking meetings with everybody, and that's a flare in the night sky. And when a former Viking like Trent Sherfield Jr. finds a path on a Super Bowl contender, it's a reminder that this league moves on like a train that doesn't stop at your station. My bold statement is this: the year 2026 will decide whether this team is actually building something real or just spraying air freshener on smoke. I'm not talking about a cosmetic rebuild. I'm talking about the hard choices that carve out culture. Fans in purple and gold can take punches, but they still demand a clear direction. So write in the comments. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. I want to read your unfiltered take, the kind you'd shout from the stands. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings. Let's go.